beating Texas the night in Fayetteville, the night game. As long as I live, I pray to God I never forget that feeling.
Welcome, everybody, to another exciting episode of the Coaches in the Mouth podcast. Today, we have a powerhouse episode lined up for you. But before we get started, we want to thank a couple of our partners. We'll start with a huge shout out to Lindsey and Associates. Lindsey and their team have been leading the real estate business in Northwest Arkansas for over 50 years, and they are the driving force behind our podcast. Before we get to our guests, we want to thank Andrea Stone Hanna, attorney at law. If you need legal expertise that you can rely on, Andrea Hanna and her team are there to support you every step of the way. Plus, an extra thanks to ETX NWA Rentals, providing top-notch rental solutions in Northwest Arkansas. If you're looking for quality rentals, they've got you covered. If you enjoy today's podcast, consider hitting subscribe to allow us to continue to bring on these incredible guests. Enjoy the show.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Coaches in the Mouth pod. This is Coach Jeff Williams along with Coach Brad Cook and the Mouth Brent Bender. We have an awesome guest today, guys. Unbelievable. Coach, the head coach from UNLV, Coach Barry Odom. Coach, welcome to the show.
Great to see you guys. And man, it's always good to see a couple familiar faces, and then, the job that y'all do promoting football and those that are part of it. I sure appreciate it and respect it. And I hope everybody in the state of Arkansas is doing great. And we'll get into it at some point, but my family and I lived there for 3 years, and it's the greatest place we've ever lived. We loved it, our time there, and sure was fortunate to meet a lot of great people that we're still dear friends with today.
That is an awesome place. You did an awesome job while you were here. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into a little bit about your background. Did a lot of research on, talked to a lot of people that know you. And, of course, I followed your career for a long time. And let's get into it. You grew up in Oklahoma, born in Lawton, Oklahoma, went to Mansfield, Oklahoma for a little while. Then you transferred your senior year and was an unbelievable high school football player in Oklahoma. And probably the most impressive thing, folks, the man ran a 10,600 meters, and that was out there. And if that's extremely fast, especially for a linebacker,
Some tempo.
10.6. Yes, sir. Coach, talk to us a little bit about that, because you transferred your senior year over to Ada and all that deal. You're an outstanding football player in Oklahoma. Tell me just a little bit about your time growing up, your family, a little bit about that part of it.
Man, I was really fortunate that, everywhere that we lived, that sports was a big deal to the community. And the community always poured into the sports teams. I had great coaches. I mean, from T-ball all the way up to my last year playing college ball, I could name every coach I ever had, because I had some great ones, and they all made an influence on me somehow or some way. But we lived in Maysville for a number of years, and then I've got two brothers, one older brother, one younger brother. So I'm the middle, right in the middle. Older brother's 4 years older, younger brother 4 years younger, and so I was right in the middle. And Maysville is a great place to grow up. We ended up deciding as a family to move to Ada for my senior year, and I had had a lot of success at Maysville. We were a Class A school during that time, and was hoping maybe to have an opportunity on a little bit bigger of a stage. So we moved to Ada, and that was, Ada back in the day, they won 19 state championships. They were rolling during that time. So we moved there, and man, I was hoping I was going to be able to make the team, honestly, when we moved there, and ended up, we had a great senior team, went undefeated, beat Clinton in the state finals, and what a great team. We had a great offensive line. I mean, I had a lot of touchdowns, but it was really easy. His turn to hand me the ball. And we had, Brandon Daniels was our quarterback. We had a receiver named Bruce Sutton that probably could have, he got drafted Major League Baseball, but probably could have played a lot of places in college. The other running back was Brian Thomas. He went to Tulsa to play the offensive line. I think 3 of 5 played college football. we had a lot of players, and Larry McBroom was the coach during that time. And what an outstanding coach he was, and mentor. Jerry Gamble at Maysville before we moved was a family friend that still keep in touch with both of those guys forever. And then I went to the University of Missouri to school, and I played linebacker. I was recruited as a running back, and about 3 days into practice, I got a call to my dorm phone, and it was Coach Smith. Larry Smith was my head coach. It was his secretary, and said, "You need to come see Coach Smith." And I knew I'd missed a class that day, and I thought, man, they already caught me. Somehow they found out that I didn't go to biology. So I walked over to the football facility and walked in, and he said, "We're going to move you to linebacker." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he just looked at me like I thought there was going to be a conversation about what that was going to be like. And he said, "Do you have anything to say?" And I said, "Well, do I get a vote in it?" And he said, "You don't." And I said, "Yes, sir." And I turned around and walked out. And I got almost down the hall, and he's like, "Hey, Odom," and yelled at me down the hall. And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, and I had a million things running through the mind during that time. He said, "Do you know where the linebackers meet?" I said, "I'll find it, coach." We had practice that afternoon right in the middle of two-a-days. And anyway, the best move happened. So I moved to linebacker and had a great career there. We were able to win go to a couple bowl games, and really transformed and changed the program history of Missouri during that time as a player. They'd been forever. They hadn't won any, and then we went to 2 bowl games during my career there. Then I was a high school coach right after I graduated. I went back to the state of Oklahoma, was an assistant coach for Coach McBroom at Ada. We got beat in the state finals. And then I got a head coaching job at Rockbridge High School back in Columbia, Missouri, a 6A school there, and took over. And second year, we got beat in the semifinals. I wanted to get into college coaching, and I had an opportunity to interview for a graduate assistant job back at the University of Missouri. Gary Pinkle was the head coach, and was able to get that job, and then kind of took off from there in the college world. You never know with the decisions you make and the influences and the opportunities you have on which way the career is going to go. And I've been blessed to be around a lot of really good people, and just very fortunate about that.
Well, let's go back to there, but Larry Smith. I mean, legendary coach. I've got a lot of respect for him. You go in as a freshman, and you tear your ACL, and back then, that's pretty devastating. Back you're about my age, and I've had a few of those myself, and I've never recovered from them. But you came back and played and ended up being team captain. Had a phenomenal career. Talk to us a little bit about Coach Smith. Were you a part of the Nebraska, the ball get kicked up in the air in the end zone, and a little bit about that time?
It was incomplete. It was. I'm still. If we had review instant replay now, that game I think would have turned out differently. Not because of that play, but about 3 plays before that, there was a tip ball. Yep. And the other linebacker, Al Sterling at the time, dove, and I believe he made the catch. He believes it. But anyway, we ended up coming up short. But Larry Smith, you talk about some of the things that we still do in our program today, on some of the philosophy that Larry had. And, he passed away a few years ago, but I keep in touch with his wife, Cheryl, and his son, Corby. And, he gave us belief and in building a program. It was built around toughness. It was built around consistency. It was built around discipline. And those are values that I carried with me for a long time. But we had some really good defensive linemen when I was playing linebacker. I joked when I was a head coach at Missouri, I was going to change the record book because I was in there for number of missed tackles in a career. I was in the list. So I think I got that page removed from the record book. But man, some of my lifelong friends are guys that I shared a locker room with there, and it was all, the game of football is such an amazing sport because it brings everybody together. And one of the greatest things about it is, in the locker room, it doesn't matter how much money you do or don't have. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter your last name. None of that matters. You go out and you work together and you sweat, and it's a brotherhood in that locker room that you'd do anything in the world for those guys. And those are some of my closest friends today, guys I shared the locker room with.
Well, you do that. You go into coaching with another great, Gary Pinkle, who, a guy. I watched him come in. I was a young coach, and just watch him build that program with toughness and
Yeah.
consistency. And looking what you did for him, it looked like he knew you pretty good and had a plan for you, because your career right there, you were doing a little bit of, had your hands a little bit of everything from player developmental to recruiting to on the field, off the field. Talk to us a little bit how Gary Pinkle probably shaped you a little bit for being a head coach.
I would say he's been more influential than anybody in my career, and I was with him for a long time. And I started as a graduate assistant, and I didn't really know how long that was going to look and last, and what that would look like. But during that time, I was a GA for 1 year, and I had a lot of, went from a head high school coach who had just got beaten in the semifinals, and then I went and took a GA's job. And Matt Eberflus was a defensive coordinator. He's the head coach of Chicago Bears now. We had some great coaches on that staff. And Coach Pinkle took me in and really put me in different roles. I was a GA 1 year. The next year, I was the first ever director of recruiting at the University of Missouri. And Coach Pinkle was as disciplined and as structured and as consistent. If you would walk into one of his staff meetings on the flow of what it looked like, and you would walk into ours tomorrow morning, it is structured exactly the same. And you go sports medicine, you go an academic update, you do assistant coaches talk about every player on the board, on the depth chart board, so everybody in the room knows what's going on. But he did that. I was with him for almost 15 years. He did it every single day the same way. And there's a reason he had success. He was really, really good and had a plan for absolutely everything. So after the year being a graduate assistant, I was the first ever director of recruiting at Missouri, and it was a recruiting department of one. It was me. And so I learned a lot about organization and about structure and about putting things together. That was still, we were in the VHS world. So it was a card catalog system, basically about all the state of, Arkansas players were here, and it was 2 rooms that just covered in film. And I was able to break those things down for our assistant coaches. And then that's how we went about recruiting. And I learned a lot about, some of the measurements and measurables that coach used: explosive numbers, change of direction, height and weight. We had a formula. We put everything in, and it's changed and evolved over time, but I still use some of those things today. And, you look at right now, and I'll go back to what we were talking about, but right now we're the number 1 recruiting group of 5 school. UNLV is for next year's class. We're number 1 in our conference. And I think a lot of that goes to the things that I learned under Coach Pinkle and some of that structured discipline on how we did things recruiting. And then after that, I had a couple of job offers, and he said, if you'll just stay with me, I'm going to continue to train you, and I'm going to move you on the field when the time is right and we have an opening. And that was hard to do, but I trusted him. And it was the best thing I could have done, because he put me then in a role of director of football operations. And I mean, I was his right-hand guy every step of the way, in meetings, and kind of the umbrella that goes along with running a college football program, all the different people that affect it, from compliance and donors, everything on campus and admissions and all the different things. I was a part of that. And, I look back after I became a head coach, and that really put me in a position and trained me in a lot of those things that a lot of guys would have no idea with. He provided me really an atmosphere of continuing to improve. And then 3 years after that role, our safeties coach left and went to the NFL, and he ended up hiring me in that spot. And, was there with him in that role for 3 years. I wanted to be a coordinator, so I left and went to Memphis. Was there for 3 years. We had great success turning that program around under Justin Fuente. And then I went back. Missouri hired me back as the coordinator in 2015. And we had a really, really good defense that year. And ended up, he retired at the end of that year, interviewed, became the head coach in the 2016 season from there. So, going back to, I know that's a really long answer, but Coach Pinkle continued to provide me opportunity after opportunity, and I'm indebted to him forever.
Well, and you talked about waiting because he had Dave Christensen and those guys like that were there as assistants. And his one thing about coaching and just outside looking in, I was an Arkansas guy, but follow a lot of football, and they recruited some kids. We had, but those guys, it was hard to get in there because none of them left for a long time.
That's right.
But when they left, they went NFL or head coaching. Talk to us a little about the process of that patience, and you jumped to Memphis and kind of leaving home and going to Memphis and coming back a little bit. The patience part and leaving home and coming back.
Well, I think there's some value in that, and really I didn't know it at the time, but I did trust him, and he said, if you'll just stick with me, I'm going to make you a position coach, and he did it. And then I was there for 3 years coaching the safeties, and man, I was itching to be a coordinator. Maybe a little too much, but I'd known Justin Fuente a long time. He grew up in Tulsa, and we were on the same All-State team. I'd known him forever, and he got the Memphis job, and he said, "Hey, I want you to interview for this coordinator's job." And I thought, for me, at that point in my career, I thought, it might not be a bad idea to branch out a little bit and try to go see if I can make it as a coordinator. And building up at that time, Memphis was not very good program-wise. And in year 3, we won the conference, beat BYU in the bowl game. We were a really, really good football team. So those experiences I had from Coach Pinkle, and then combined with meeting some new people and seeing a different way of doing things, was really good for my career. And then after that year, that was football season of 2014, I really could have went about anywhere in college football as a coordinator. And had a lot of different opportunities. We had really good players at Memphis. We had really good assistant coaches, and I was lucky to be the coordinator there. And I decided to go back to Mizzou with Coach Pinkle as a coordinator, and it was a great decision because I knew what I was going to step into. With him running the program, I did not know that just a few months later he was going to retire. We had some off the field things in 2015. That really were hard to overcome with, there was a racial boycott on campus. There were some things within the team that fractured. That was a hard season, but also things that always are going to stand the test of time are relationships. And with the players, the things that we went through and the guys that I still keep in touch with from that year are pretty remarkable, actually. And then when I went through the interview process to be the head coach there, all those lessons that I learned, I feel like I was able to apply them. And there wasn't anybody that knew the situation better than I did at that point. And Mac Rhodes, who's the director of athletics now at Baylor, he ended up offering me the position, and I accepted it. And look back at the 4 years that I had as a head coach at University of Missouri, and we ended up right at 500. And we went to, didn't go to a bowl game my first year. We went second and third year. Fourth year, qualified for a bowl, but there were some NCAA infractions that it took 4 years. It happened, and before I was the head coach, it finally became resolved there, and they ruled us ineligible for bowl competition in 19. We finished 6-6 that year, and then I was fired at the end of that season. And then fast forward, went to Arkansas. But the lesson of always be where your feet are. Always understand that if you do a good enough job in the position you are, you're going to establish meaningful relationships. You're going to help young men become better husbands, better dads, better brothers, and you're going to help them set themselves up for the next 40 to 50 years of their life. And that's why I got into coaching. And I've been fortunate again to be around a lot of great players. And just like this last year, man, we had some good players that resulted in getting to the championship game. And I'm a heck of a lot better coach right now than I was when I got the head coaching job at Missouri. You learn from your experiences, and then you get those chances again, and you go apply them. The one thing I couldn't ever understand, when I was a head coach at Missouri, and I'm going to make a whole bunch of people mad. I'm not saying this to make people mad. We went 4-0 against Arkansas, and I couldn't believe it because I looked at, the way Arkansas was recruiting during that time. We just found a way to win on the field. And then when I went to Arkansas, you get to see both sides of that rivalry, and it'll end up someday being very, very fierce. I know that.
Yeah, they get after pretty good. Well, anyway, you're at Missouri, and I'll say it. I don't care what anybody says is I'm old, and it doesn't matter. You were there that last game in Missouri, and y'all beat Arkansas that last game, War Memorial Stadium. They were going through coaching change, Barry Junior's over there in them, and difficult times also. But I remember seeing Derek Dooley and you guys win that game and thinking they're going to be okay. And a lot of people in our world, the coaching world, thought you got a bad raw deal over there. I can say it. You don't have to. Got a raw deal at Missouri, just the way it all kind of fell at the end. But we were happy for you to come to Arkansas, and you roll into here, and I think you had a big part. Coach Pippen's done a great job in that part of it. You came in and really set a tone defensively where we were really sound, and you took some players. Talk to us a little bit about that, because the portal world was coming in at that time. NIL was coming in at that time. This was not a very good situation,
I think if we would have had some of those things at Missouri, and I agree with you, man. I thought I got a bad deal at the end too.
Yeah.
But you live and you learn. But I also look at, if we would have had NIL the way it's rolling out, probably could have recruited a little bit different at my alma mater. But things happen. You have to adjust. You got to change, and that's the way the world always is. So when I got relieved from the job, I wasn't one. I couldn't sit around and not do anything. I was ready to go back to work, and I don't know. I had a couple opportunities at a head coaching position during that time in Group of 5, and I wanted to go and learn a little bit more. It's kind of the way that I looked at it, the approach I took. So coordinator-wise, there was a lot of them. I wanted to stay in the SEC during that time, and I'd known Sam Pittman. I tried to hire Sam 2 or 3 times when I was a head coach at Missouri, and I couldn't ever afford him because he was either at Tennessee or at Georgia, and I couldn't get the contract done. But I had a lot of respect for him, and I wanted to go to work with and for him. And man, what a great decision that was. I enjoyed, again, my 3 years there. We did some things defensively early on in the 2020 season. Who knew every week what your roster was going to be? So we knew we had to put some things together schematically just to have a chance. And then you didn't know exactly who you were going to have after the Thursday COVID test for the roster that weekend. So, the chance to go down and beat Mississippi State, the chance to, I don't know how many Ole Miss threw to us that day, 6 or 7 takeaways that day. I mean, there are so many memories that I have from that first year on really getting around and building it the way that you wanted to under the circumstances. And then, the next year in 21, I'm telling you, I look back, I used teach tape from the football season of 21. I'll use it forever with Hayden Henry, Bumper Poole, Grant Morgan, the way that Jalen Catalon, the way that those guys played, John Ridgway. We had a special thing going that year, and what a great season it was, beating Penn State in the bowl game. And then the next year, we didn't play as well as we should have on defense, and there's a number of reasons for that. But again, it all turned out to have a chance for guys to continue to grow and have opportunities. And really, when the UNLV job came open, I wasn't looking to leave Arkansas because I loved it there so much. I thought we had a good defensive class coming in and a really good defensive opportunity that next year for 23. But I also know if you want and have the itch to be a head coach and an opportunity comes about, man, there's only so many times you can say no, and then eventually they're going to quit giving you opportunities. So this was one at UNLV that I had recruited the city of Vegas for a number of years at the different stops I'd been, and I thought there's enough opportunity there that I think there can be a winning program. I think there'll be the things that we could do. I think you got an opportunity because of a city of 2.5 million people. The things now with the way college football are, it was something that I was really excited about and decided to take an opportunity on it. And for 19 months now, we've moved it forward in fast forward pretty good.
Well, Brent, go ahead. Your dad used to be out there. You've been waiting to talk to Coach Odom for all week, so go nail him. Let's go.
Hey, Coach, I got to tell you, your facilities now are a heck of a lot better than my dad had at UNLV when their offices were in the Harmon PE building.
There is no question. We play in Allegiant Stadium, which is one of the finest stadiums in the world. That's our home stadium. And then our the Petrino family football complex is one of the nicest football facilities that there is. No matter what conference or level you look at, everything that we have for our student athletes is under one roof, from sports medicine to academics, locker room, weight room, meeting space, coaches' offices. Everything's under one space. And that was part of my decision. As you look at leadership in the athletic director, you look at the opportunity on how to recruit. There's 36 high schools in the city of Vegas. You can recruit those kids here. LA's 3.5 hours, Phoenix is 4.5, and then everywhere in the country, there's direct flights. Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, the area that I grew up in the Midwest and Mid-South, how important the state of Texas is to us recruiting still today. The state of Arkansas, we got a number of players from Arkansas on our roster. That's, again, another reason I took the job.
And another question I had, my dad was there 92 to 93. We had really good players, but a total lack of head coach. I won't say who he is, but you can probably imagine. You are the winningest. You had the best record at UNLV since Harvey Hyde. I believe that's 1983, something like that. And my dad always thought UNLV was a gold mine. How do you keep that going to UNLV? Keep it.
Yeah, I think there's reasons why we had success. Number one, I do believe we've got good players. I think we've got an outstanding staff. And then you apply a number of things on hunger, on discipline. And then when we started, guys, it was built on hope, vision, and belief. And then the consistency of doing that. And then all of a sudden now the way you're able to recruit and attract players here, not only, we've signed 48 high school players in the 2 cycles that I've been here. We're a high school recruiting program, but we're also really, really aggressive in the transfer portal world. If we're going to lose somebody, I'm going to go find an upgrade somehow, some way. We're going to get them here. And I think the aggressive nature and the way that our staff has embraced what UNLV can be. And then, you play the game the right way, you prepare the right way. Then you develop momentum and you develop things with teamwork and things that are really, really hard to beat. And, we don't have the signs of culture and family. I don't believe in putting those things up. Now, if you walk in our locker room, you're going to say that's the best family atmosphere I've ever seen. That culture is so strong that our players have embodied themselves in, and the foundation of UNLV football is built one that is very, very strong, and it's here to last. I believe that UNLV should be in the conversation to be in the 12-team expanded playoffs. That's what I believe. Just like last year, I believe we ought to be in the championship game, and we got there. Now we got to get back there and win it. But if you systematically you do things, you got to have some breaks go your way. But also, I believe in the blueprint on what we have on how we do things.
And I'm going to tell you, from everywhere my dad's coached all over the creation, played at the national championship at Arkansas in the Hall of Fame, and I cheer for every team he's ever coached for every Saturday, no matter what. The only thing with UNLV, I had to be up too late to watch y'all.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you this: can you touch on your players that are on your roster with Arkansas ties a little bit?
Yeah, I sure can. And it's amazing I lived in the Central Time Zone for 46 years. My body is still on Central Time Zone, so I can relate. And then you fast forward to this year, 11 of our 12 games are on national TV. And that's such a huge statement for us. And the respect factor that's out there for what our team has built. We're certainly excited about that. I'm probably going to miss somebody as I start going through. I don't have the roster in front of me. But we've got some really good players, and there's a number of them with Arkansas ties. Starting up front on the offensive line, Jalen St. John. And again, guys, it's about relationships. It's about those things. My players are the most important thing that we've had, that I've been able, my wife and kids, that it's our team. My wife and I, we've been married 24 years, and we look at it as right now we've got 3 kids in our house, and we've also got 115 sons that we're in charge of. And when you take that approach, then the investment level on both sides is really, really high. But Jalen St. John was committed to me at Missouri. I've known the kid since he was in the 8th grade, and he ended up transfer here. This is not an Arkansas connection, but just going on relationship. Antonio Doyle committed to me at Missouri, ended up going to Texas A&M. He transferred here. A little more of the Arkansas flavor. Jalen Catalan is here for another year. Malik Chavis is here for another year. Rising's Arkansas's finest. Manny Powell, who played linebacker there, he's got a chance of being a really good player for us. And then on down, the line, we're going to recruit the state of Arkansas heavy, because I know the type of players that are there. I know the type of high school coaches that are there. Tremendous coaches, and high school football. And it can be, if we get the players we want to out of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, we'll win a championship here. I believe that. So the connective piece is really strong, and it's helped us certainly, get the program up off the ground, and we're going to continue to, I think, win at a championship level.
And one more thing before I go, I was in Fort Smith at the Hampton Inn, checking in, and behind me was James Shebus, your special teams. I turned around and I saw the Rebel tag, and I said, "You're James Shebus, aren't you?"
Yeah.
He said, "I am." I said, "Been following your career." And
one of our other players, Jackson Woodard, was first team all conference last year, academic All-American, and was just voted as our conference preseason defensive player of the year. He's thriving here. He's done such a terrific job. He's the heart and soul of what we are. Just so proud of the steps he's made and will continue to make. And James Shebus, I believe, guys, I believe he's the best special teams coordinator in all of football. Doesn't matter what level. And last year, the special teams for us was our X factor. It won us games. We had an All-American punt and kick returner who's returning. Coach Shebus is one of the greatest motivators I've ever been around. And he gets guys in position to make plays. They believe in what they're doing because of our fundamental work. And you look at the change of field possession, the yardage that we've got, the hidden yardage in that, and it was such staggering amounts when you look at the way that we always gave our offense another first down. When the return team was on the field, defensively we were able to pin them back deep. Our punt team, our punt return, kickoff, kick return. I think Coach Shebus is the best. And you look, I'm going to keep going on players. I'm really lucky. I never had a chance to coach my kids growing up because in my, for whatever reason, I thought I was too busy, and I regret that. But I look, my oldest son is a sophomore here at UNLV. He plays linebacker. He graduated from Shiloh Christian there. So it's about as family as you can get here. And there's a lot of familiar people that I know this, whenever we play and the Hogs aren't playing, the whole state of Arkansas ought to be rooting for the UNLV Rebels because of the connections that we have here that were former Razorbacks.
No doubt. Go ahead, Bray.
Well, Coach, you touched on it a little bit earlier. The culture that you've set there at UNLV, the Rebel way. What exactly is that about? What does that mean to you and your program?
Good to see you, buddy. You're looking good.
Great to see you, Coach.
I think I could find a COVID year for you, and you could come kick butt for us.
2 or 3 reps, Coach. They're rep 4 now.
That's okay. Hey, those 2 or 3, I guarantee
Yes,
I know
sir.
what we're going to get out of you. There ain't no doubt. There was a guy that coached at K-State for a long time, Bill Snyder, and maybe transformed college football and had an impact on college football, maybe more than almost anybody. And unfortunately, when I was a player, played against him. When I was a coach, coached against him. And when I was a head coach at Missouri, I had him come over and speak to our high school coaches at the coaches clinic. And he got up and spoke. He spoke for like 3 hours. And he didn't really, not one time, touch on X's and O's. He didn't talk about how you fit up the power or how we're running the triple option on the other side. He talked about every single day, structurally, foundationally, the characteristics that it took to win a championship, from leadership to competitive spirit to being a great teammate. And I sit there and I took those notes and I thought, this is very much in alignment with how Coach Pinkle established a number of things in his program. And I took what I thought was the best of those situations and experiences, and I put it together for us. And we'll do leadership lessons through fall camp, spending really time as the head coach on how I can impact our team, not only for us to be the strongest team we can be, the strongest locker room to out-team our competition, but man, how can something when these guys are out running a business or they're being a coach or they're the head of their household, what is some elements that I can leave with them that's going to make them successful? And in turn, it's really easy when you look at it on a practice habit. And I'll go through, from one practice to the next, we'll go through film as an entire team, and I'll point out guys celebrating with their teammates. Okay, how important that is in today's world on being an encourager, not a discourager, playing the game the right way. We've got there's ways that you teach football IQ, and we do that with teach tapes, and it's one of the most fun parts of, and for me being a head coach, on trying to get us to be a smart football team. And then you look at the components on, okay, you got evenly matched teams. Well, what's going to be the breaking point? It's a turnover margin, it's third down offense or defense, red zone offense, defense, kicking game. And then you look at how close and galvanized can this team be. Let's spend as much time on that as we do schematics. And when you do that and you get everybody in the building, everybody in the organization aligned in the vision on what it's supposed to look like, then man, it's hard to stop. And that's what I've enjoyed about building this. We've been able to do some of those things, and we call it, our team bottom line. And then within that is the Rebel way.
Well, it's obviously been effective. And now, since you've taken over at UNLV, what's one thing that you might go back and do differently, or what's some advice that you would give a young Coach Odom before he took over at Missouri?
Yeah, no question. And I learned a lot of lessons, when I first got the head coaching job are the rules are what they are now, NIL, or is this back when I got the job and they weren't that?
It's whatever you want it to be.
The rules are like what they were. So the thing that when I got the job at Mizzou in end of 2015, beginning of 2016, I was going from the defensive coordinator then to the head coach. And at that time, I still, I tried to be the defensive coordinator. I tried to be the director of recruiting, the director of marketing, really the director of everything, plus the head coach. Okay, I've been fortunate. And, luckily then I had, Josh Heupel, who's now the head coach at Tennessee, Coach Ryan Walters, who's now the head coach at Purdue. We ended up having some really good coaches there. But early on, I felt like I was trying to do it all. And as I got into the business a little bit longer, more experienced, and learned, man, hire really, really good people, build them up to do their job, support them every way that you can, and then get out of the way and let them do the job. And I think, I've at more ease or comfort with being able to do that. Mike Shears, our defensive coordinator, and I think he's one of the best young coaches in all of college football. Brennan Marion is our offensive coordinator. I think he's one of the best young offensive coordinators in all of college football. And then you heard me talk about Coach Shivas. We've got 3 really, really good coordinators. And then beyond that, I think we're able to hire really good coaches in the other positions. And then you look at who you hire in the department heads, head of strength and conditioning, sports medicine, all those people that touch your players. I've spent more time with them in staff meetings on really setting the stage on what our organization looks like. So when the sports medicine and trainer, they go into their room, the message is clear and it's concise and it's aligned with what everything else is going. And it's, I've been able to find more time to do those things. And I'm certainly still, involved offensively, defensively, and kicking, because I want to know on game day, there may be a time that I need to make a 3rd down and short call, or want to give some feedback on that, when we're going to run a fake punt. So I need to be in tune with some of those things, but there's just a balance now that I feel, I've been in the chair before, and they don't give you a book when you get it, as you know. Hey, you got this issue, turn to page 7, and here's the answer. There's some of those things you got to figure out with your feet to the fire.
Yeah, that's very true. Now moving on, I didn't talk to Jeff or Brent about this story, but a couple years ago, you and I were on a flight. I believe it was coming back from Gulf Shores, maybe probably during that dead period.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yep.
Now, we were sitting on the plane on the taxiway for several hours, and I'm not sure why or what the reason was. And it's like 10 p.m. We weren't allowed to take off. And so we end up coming back into the gate. And then you drove. You just got in the car and drove to Fayetteville, right?
There's a few things in this world I'm really, really, really good at. And one of them is being on the beach. I mean, I'm really good at that. They usually have a cooler with me.
Yes, sir.
And some little bit of live music or music that I take along. I'm good at that. So I tried to stay to the last possible moment. And so anyway, you might have been doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Caught the latest flight out of there. Didn't even really think about, okay, are we really going to take off? Or, I mean, it didn't even cross my mind. But I had to be back the next day. So there was no room for error. So the only option was, let's hop in the car and go make it work.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing you do that. I said, man, he's about to drive overnight, 12 hours all the way home to Fayetteville.
I think we might have talked about y'all hopping in the car together. I don't remember what went down with your decision on what you were going to do. You probably stayed another week and had a good time.
We followed your lead, because the tempo set by the strong. We're gonna shotgun a Red Bull and do this thing.
Yeah, it was hard to get a rental car that night because everybody. Yeah, that was one of my best recruiting jobs.
No, there's no doubt. I remember that. We would tell the story all the time. Said Coach Odom's doing it. We're gonna follow his lead.
No doubt. It's awesome, man.
Well, Coach, change subject here. Let's get back to your coordinators. And Coach Marion, I'm an offensive line guy. We're all offensive line guys. I've watched him. We even had Rick Jones on a couple of weeks ago, and he told everybody, said, if you're a young coach, you need to go see this guy. And I just watch him from afar, and you've kept all 3 of them, and which is those 2, especially really young guys. Of course, James has been doing it forever. Talk to us how important that is, because we've seen this and we've all gone through it where you lose a couple of coordinators, everybody, we plug this guy in, and it don't work out. Talk to us a little bit, keeping those guys and how you're always, and people are looking at them also in that part of it,
Well, when I got the job, my first hire as the offensive coordinator was Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, that's right.
And he left me. Oh, man, I was frustrated with Bobby. And I've known him for a long time. I mean, 20 plus years I've known him. Got great respect for him. And, when I was the head coach at Missouri, he was between jobs. And Garrett McGee was our receivers coach.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, would you care if Coach Petrino came and spent a couple days with us? And I said, I would love for him to. And so really I got to know him then on a more deep level and had so much respect for him. I think he's a brilliant offensive mind. And so when we were able to get him hired when I first got the job, that was a big deal. And I was excited about it. And I understand why he left. And I still talk to Bobby. We talk often every month. And I know that he'll do a heck of a job this year. So every time you go through, and one thing I learned from Coach Pinkle was you better have, even though he didn't lose many guys because everybody wanted to stay with him, you better have lists of guys that you're going to target at each position. So quarterbacks coach, coordinator, whatever it looks like, you better have, and maybe not exactly in the order of, okay, we're starting with this guy, but I put it in order. Okay, I'm going with this guy. I'm going grand slam. All right. And then if I can't get him for whatever reason, then this is who I think is the next best fit for us. Any of this kind of, I've got it in my top left-hand drawer. I know exactly where I keep it, this ongoing list all the time, because we were lucky this year. We had one of the 10 assistant coaches, we had one change. And wow. So that's hard to do, especially after the year we had at UNLV, to be able to keep them all together. So I'm so thankful for them. I think they're the best coaching staff in college football. To be able to keep them together again for a year, it's exciting. And really, at the end of last year, I'm trying to go through. I had at least 5 guys that had opportunities that I didn't think there was any way in the world we were going to keep them because of the financial disparity on what they were offered to go. So and somehow, some way, we were able to keep them. So blessed about that. But I think, a hallmark on what we're trying to do offensively, we're going to run the football. And it doesn't look like you're lining up in 12 personnel and running the power 25 times a game. I'm not saying that. Creatively, we found a way. Coach Marion has worked this offense now for years and years, and you always adjust to your personnel. But last year, before the bowl game, we had scored more rushing touchdowns than anybody in the country. And then Georgia scored 65 on Florida State, and they passed us after the bowl game. So we're going to run the ball, and there's going to be some quarterback run elements into it. There's going to be some downhill, some gap scheme. There's going to be all different ways creatively to run the ball, because I believe to win a championship, you got to be able to run the ball. Now, what we're doing off of that is almost every play that we have, there's some sort of triple option element to it with the RPO world built in. I saw Coach Marion speak years and years ago at the AFCA convention, and I was in there, and I'm always a firm believer, no matter where you are, who you are, and who you're listening to, you can always learn something. So I'm sitting there, and I go in, and I'm taking notes of this guy on the things, and I'm looking at it through a defensive lens. I thought, this causes some problems on how you fit this. It's against the rules on how you fit it. So I stayed afterwards and talked to him after the convention, after he got done speaking. And we hit it off, and I'd stayed in touch with him since then. And when I got down to putting the staff together, I'd hired Bobby, but I had been talking to Brennan as well, because there were some other things going on with Coach Petrino. I didn't know exactly how it was going to play out. And then, after Bobby got the job and then he left, my first phone call went back to my list. My first call was to Brennan. And at that point, it was already water. I thought, man, I don't know if we can get back in it or not. He was a receivers coach at University of Texas. And so anyway, luckily we were able to get him hired, and it's been a great hire for us. We scored 40 points at least six times last year. And, we recruited really well. We got one of the top receivers in college football, Ricky White, at 1,500 yards. He's back. Had a freshman running back that scored 12 rushing touchdowns. He's back. 4 or 5 offensive linemen are back. All-American punt and kick returner Jacob DeJesus playing the slot. We've got a transfer from Texas, Casey Kane. And then we got a couple of other pieces that we feel really strongly about on the offensive side that I think we can be more explosive than we were last year. I think there's some things that we can do with the vertical passing game that maybe we didn't have the opportunity to do last year. But it's all going to start by having a chance to run the ball.
Well, let's get into this year's team a little bit more. I mean, you get your non-conference schedule. You got your at Houston. It's always a tough place to play. At Kansas, they've got that program turned around. You got Syracuse rolling in, and then at Oregon State, and then your league. I've heard you talk a little bit earlier. You were a young team last year, and you got a veteran team this year, which you got to feel good about that. Talk to us about the non-conference, your league a little bit, and then having that veteran presence coming in this year.
The Mountain West Conference is solid. You go Air Force, you go Boise, you go Fresno, every single week. And I don't want to leave anybody out, but it's a tough league. It's hard to get to the championship game. And we were able to do that last year, and then we came up short. Boise beat us in the championship game. So analytically, I looked at the end of the year, and knowing that in the future, the 12-team playoff was going to be, okay, how do we get UNLV into one of those 12 spots? And looking at, you got a schedule. You got, number one, you better win your conference. Number two, out of conference, our strength of schedule has got to be really strong. So we're going to Big 12 Houston, like you said. We're going to Big 12 Kansas week 3, like you said. Syracuse is coming here, and then we got Oregon State. So those 4 games, I mean, we've got to be really good really early. And then, oh, by the way, you got to beat Fresno, you got to beat Boise, you got to beat – there was no way in the world that if we got back to the championship game and won it, that I was going to be able to look at my team and say, I didn't schedule strong enough out of conference schedule, and we didn't make the 12. I wasn't going to do that. So we had a couple of options on some people to play and not play, and we chose to go with the schedule that we did. And we've known each other for a while. I'm not going back down from anything. And this schedule it's hard, but it's exactly what we need. And if we can stand week to week, I don't need to look at it 12 games all together. I need to look at it one at a time. And if we can take care of that and continue to improve, we'll be right where we need to be the first weekend in December.
Well, and then expanding that 12-team deal there, with the playoffs, man, that gives guys like you a great opportunity. Like I said, your schedule's set up right. You just got to win. And we had Mike Norvell on earlier, and they, didn't get in last year with their situation and all. But I think expanding it for guys like you, your program, that gives you an opportunity where in the past it was kind of difficult. I think that's just huge. Do you focus in on that? Okay, or I know it's week by week. We all do that.
No.
How do you feel program wise?
Yeah, I think
with it.
I've learned again over time. I'm just very open and honest with my team, and we've gone through the schedule. We understand at the end of the day, it's a results-driven business. It doesn't matter how hard we try, how much we work. End of the day, you got to win, and we know we got to win. And if our goals, we talk about early and often. We want to compete and win a championship. Okay, that starts with the Mountain West Championship. If you do that, then you're going to be in a position to be in the conversation for something else. So I'm not going to shy away from it. We're going to run right to it. And if we happen to lose 1 or 2, okay, we can't let that change the outcome of what we're still working for and winning the Mountain West Championship. And we do have a veteran team. We've got a mature team. Some of that is through recruiting. Some of it is because now we're in year 2 of who we are. We're getting ready, cranked up to go through everybody in our program when we start practice. I don't care if you're a first team or fourth team, you're going to get exactly the same amount of reps, the way our practice structure is. And that will fast forward the maturity of your team a lot quicker than anything else. So I'm excited what they've done since the time the bowl game was over last year. We've added some really meaningful pieces. And then the development of the program, some of the guys that came in as high school freshmen to look at the transformation of what they look like when they got here to where they are now on being able to go play winning football. Our kids have done a tremendous job.
Well, no doubt. Let's look at landscape of college football a little bit. Rumors, Clemson, Florida State going to Big 12, got all this movement. Got a crystal ball. Where are y'all at? I mean, you see this thing, 3 power conferences, people, it's just crazy a little bit. What do you see? You've been around it. If you were the
Yeah.
commissioner and they had a commissioner, what do you see happening? And
Well,
where
I
we're
think-
going with it?
Yeah, I think number one, it's always going to change. Whatever we knew back in the day of the Big Eight and Southwest Conference, as traditionalist of a mind as I am, those are gone. And you got to adapt, adjust, or you get left behind. You look at the city of Las Vegas, and geographically, the location on where we are, it's become the sports mecca of the world. In the last 12 months, we've had the East-West Shrine Bowl game here. We've had Formula One. We've had the Super Bowl. We've had the champion Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces. We've got the Raiders. We've got NASCAR. And that doesn't even talk about all the different things that we've got going entertainment-wise. So everything is going through Vegas. So the market is here. There's enough space for there to be a really successful college football program here. I also look at the brand of the Mountain West Conference, and now going in year 26, we're in a really good position. And this year, because there is no Pac-12, Oregon State and Washington State are playing the Mountain West schedule. Okay, what does that mean going forward? I have no idea. I know that every single conversation that's going on, UNLV is one of the names that continues to come up because of some of the success we had last year.
Yeah.
The forecast of where the program is going, but then also to capture the city of Vegas, there's some real to all of that.
Well, go ahead, Bray. I think Bray needs to talk to you about the heat. It gets a little warm out there. Talk to us about how you practice that. Get into it, Bray.
So, true story. This year was my first time ever to Vegas. I didn't trust myself. I needed to chaperone my girlfriend. She's from Vegas, so I went with her this spring break. But obviously, a little different kind of heat. How do you deal with the temperatures year round being what they are?
I would call it really, really hot. So I've just pulled up on my phone the next 10 days, the coolest high is 107.
Sure.
So now, but then everybody says, "Oh, it's a dry heat." Damn it, it's hot. So Vegas is a wonderful place. I mean, I'd been here 3 or 4 times before I got the job and never even knew there was anything off the strip. But we live about 20 minutes west of campus. Our campus is right next to the strip. I'm sitting in my office right now, and I'm looking out and looking directly at the Sphere. It's a beautiful, beautiful view. But
Wow.
we are a morning practicing team. So everything we do, from in season, out of season, summer ball, everything we do, we're in the morning. We're probably, we're off the field no later than 11 o'clock every day. So between 10:30 a.m., 11 a.m., our guys are off the field. And, I think we could go in the afternoon. I just don't know if that's the smartest thing for the grind of a 15-week season to be able to do it every single day. So we've adapted. We're a morning practicing team. It's worked really well for us. It's helped us, the health of our team. I'm a firm believer in eating breakfast together as a team. I'm a firm believer of eating lunch together as a team. I think that helps, again, the continuity and the bond of what you have. So we do that every single day. And the change and now this year 11 of 12 on national TV, a lot of those have been moved to a night game. So you worry about that a little bit as a coach because you do everything in the morning and now you got to transition to night. But we had night games last year and played really well. So we got to feel like we've got a good plan for it. We still, even during practice, we rehearse everything. I mean, we'll go a TV timeout. You know how long the TV games are now.
Wow.
You're sitting there for 3.5 minutes. So we do that during practice. there'll be 2 or 3 times during practice we have a long extended, end of quarter. Between the first and second quarter, it's always 3.5 minutes. Well, we work on that in practice because, as a player, there's only so many things your coach can give you coaching point wise. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there like, holy crap, we still got 2.5 minutes to sit here and look at each other. So we rehearse that in practice. We've got tents around the field. We'll go get off the, out of the direct sunlight, one of those. And we have our nutrition staff comes out with fruits and drinks. And then you got to snap back the mental approach. Okay, there was a little break. Now we got to go right back into an 11-11 situation. I think that helped us prepare for games last year.
Yeah.
And it also helps us preparing in the heat as we have it here.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you have a good plan for it. Well, recruiting. I would imagine it can't be super difficult to try and sell somebody to come to Las Vegas to play football. What are some of the things that you do with recruits, or what are some of the great places to eat in Vegas that you might take them to?
Well, there's a number of things that we're able to do recruiting that nobody in the world can do and match. There's one Vegas in the world. Yeah. So our Friday night meal with a place on the north end of the Strip, the Stratosphere, we go up in the very top of that and have dinner. And what a beautiful view. There's a number of things, we Saturday morning brunch, you're sitting at a place on the Strip, you're looking out and watching the Bellagio fountains. That's pretty cool. So we have been able to embrace the city, and even as important as that is, the city has embraced us, and everybody likes a winner. So we understand that together, the connective piece, if you come here, and you're going to be on a stage playing under the lights in Vegas, there's a lot of eyes on you, and the networking opportunities here for guys that are interested in that is unmatched to a lot of places you try to compare it to. Well,
I said I have 2 or 3 reps, but I might be able to squeeze out a 4th if you got room for me there in Las Vegas.
There is, you can tell I'm not going to miss a meal. I mean, I like to eat a lot. And the food is one of the best places in the world. There's a couple of different Italian places. You guys remember Jerry Tarkanian, the Hall of Fame basketball coach. He had an Italian place, Piero's, that he did most of his recruiting in. And that's where I'm doing most of my recruiting at as well. So I've got introduced to some of the right people, some of the best Italian food in the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a cool place to be.
You guys you come out. I don't know when your next show is. Come out and do the show from my office. It'd be pretty fun.
100%. We are. We're all in.
Just sign me up right now.
We'll be there. We'll be there.
I could get James Shebus to be the 4th on the show. I don't know. Sheev's got some stories for days. That would be a nice addition.
Hey, we'll bring the mics, cameras. We can
bring a microphone and a couple of soothers. He's going to be okay.
Yes.
Well, Coach, let me I appreciate you coming on and get you off here. I know you're busy getting ready for fall camp and all that part. Give us a story. We always do this to everybody on here. I mean, it might be when you played or just a great football story for everybody watching behind the scenes.
I'm going to go. I'll keep some Arkansas flavor to it. One good for the Hogs and one not so good. I'll start not so good. Cotton Bowl 2007. I was at the University of Missouri, and we had just beat Kansas to become number 1 in the country. Lost Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game and got matched up against Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl, and that was a great memory. When I was coaching for the other guys. But man, Arkansas was loaded. I mean, the backfield, some of the players they had, and I understand there was a coaching change. I get all that. But that was one of, my memories, not just that game specifically, but that season, 2007, the way that we ended up playing, really, we were a half away from playing for the national championship and couldn't win the Big 12 championship game. And then I'm going to go to my time at Arkansas as a defensive coordinator. One of the you look at in the 3 years there, we were 2-1 against Mississippi State. We were 2-1 against Ole Miss. Winning in Death Valley 16-13. That was a big win that night. I'll never forget the feeling of when we won in Starkville, that first SEC game that Arkansas needed to win. And I knew as much as anybody on how long it had been since Arkansas had won an away league game. And because I'd been at Missouri, and I followed Arkansas closely. And I knew how big of a win that was. An interception, pick six early on. Joe Fouché had 2 other interceptions, but the way that those kids played, and then we followed up a couple weeks later when we intercepted Ole Miss, 5 times. Grant Morgan returned one for a touchdown. Catalan returned one for a touchdown. And then that really catapulted us into the 21 season and beating Texas the night in Fayetteville. The night game, as long as I live, I pray to God I never forget that feeling. Because when we walked out the week leading up to it, our guys were so ready to play. They were going to play with relentless spirit and energy, and you could feel it in the air. You could feel it. It was so thick in the locker room. Talked to them about going out and swinging first and taking the fight to them, and to sit back and watch the way that started to take. We took control of the game from play one. I didn't even have to make a call that night. They were so dialed in and so focused and played with an energy that what I go and what I know as the Razorbacks, that's what it is. And so those are a couple of things that stick true to me and that I carry with me every single day.
Yeah, that game was just awesome, and it's a lot. Coach Ed, a lot to do. I remember your defense that night. It was just sound, focused every snap, and people running like crazy to the ball. It was fun to watch, real fun to watch, and everybody storms the field.
We had built that defense, and we needed more speed on the field. And you always adjust and build your defense by the personnel you have. Went with an odd front, 3 down, multiple defensive backs. And we knew what they were going to run before they ran it. And, our kids played with a relentless spirit. And I've used that year on some of the individual efforts that I talked about earlier. Hayden Henry, it's got a teach tape just from the Texas game, the A&M game that year, and the Missouri game that year. I've got years worth of teach tape on what Hayden Henry did.
Unbelievable. Last question, we'll let you go. What some advice would you give to young coaches getting into this profession? It's a tough profession, but it's a rewarding profession.
No doubt.
Talk to us. What's some advice that you do it all the time? Your players going into coaching. What's some advice and their mindset they need to have when they're going in to be a coach?
Yeah, you're going to be assigned a role and a task. Do that better than anybody that can do it. And if you get the opportunity, try to outwork everybody in the building. And the loyalty and the word trust, if you can earn those 2 things in the building and with your players, it'll carry you to have a long, long career. And I think as long as those things are made, I would tell them to invest and to pour into their players and the relationships with them every single day. And if you do that, the game will give back. And those are things that I would try to tell young guys getting in. It's not everybody gets a chance to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles at the age of 28. Those things Yeah, they happen every now and then. There's 32 NFL jobs in the world. Okay, those are hard to get. You know, wherever you are, wherever your feet are, have that be your national championship job. If you do that, then you'll turn it into the winner it needs to be.
Well, Coach, that's great. Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Coach, we appreciate you coming on, man. We're pulling for you every Saturday and love watching your teams play. And you're such a good man for football. And we really appreciate you coming on. And like I said, we'll have you on again sometime and look forward to you and good luck to you this season.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. I'll be following y'all, and I've got to say this the right way. Go Rebels and woo pig.
Good stuff.
Yes, sir.